Hello, everyone. Nice to see you. Nice to meet you. I hope that we are live. So maybe we can get some kind of comments. So just to have a confirmation that the technique is really working because we are using it for the first time. So maybe if there are some troubles, some problems, sorry for that. So welcome to the first, and this means historical event. We are calling it Retail Talks because Roland and me, we will talk about retail, of course. We will discuss lots of technical issue, lots of technology related issue. We have a comment. This is good. So this means we are live. Hello, Christina. That's good. Thank you for the confirmation. So we will discuss, we will discuss today, just a second. Yes, Retail Talks with Roland and Darko. We will use these events to discuss technological issue, trends, concepts, and so on in retail, but we will always try to combine it with a fiscal topic because we really strong believe that news, or let's say the newest technologies, make sense only if you can use them. So it doesn't make sense to have the great concept if you are not able to implement it in some countries maybe. And the fiscalization is sometimes seen like a hurdle, let's say, that retailer has to overcome in order to be in the country. So we will discuss the technologies, we will discuss the concepts, and we will try always to relate it to the fiscalization. Today, we are live on Facebook, we are live on YouTube, and we are live on LinkedIn. Good for that. We are happy about that. It's the first time that we are testing the live streaming technology. On the other side, we are reading lots about the live streaming technology because it's a big trend in China, for example, in retail, and we think it will come into Europe as well. So if this is successful today, and I hope that, then we will continue to broadcast each Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central European Time, like now. And we will, of course, always talk about the topics that I just mentioned before. Let me introduce you your hosts. On one side, there is Roland, of course, and on the other side, yes, this is Roland. On the other side, you have me, of course, and my name is Darko. And maybe for the beginning, I will give you just some introduction about our company, and then I will ask Roland to introduce himself, and then I will give you some words about myself as well. So Fiscal Solution is not startup. We are not new company. We are existing since 18 years on the market, and we started as a developer, software developer for the fiscal driver. This was our first project, let's say. Then we developed our company, and today we are known as a Fiscal Solution, and we are active in 17 countries across the world. This is quite good. Our target is, of course, to serve all fiscal countries in the world. We hope to be able to reach that soon. And if I'm talking about serving those countries, this means providing the consultancies, how to work in those countries, and of course, providing the solution, software, middleware, fiscal middleware, so that the retail POS applications can easier adapt to the local requirements. This is about the company. May I ask you, Rocky, to Roland, to introduce yourself shortly, please?
Yes. Hello, folks. I'm Roland Zryszewski. I'm IT from long time. So I first time touched my first keyboard in 1986. So it was a long time ago. And from them, I was falling in love in the programming. And after that, we started some business with colleagues. One of guys on your left side on the screen. And we started with retail. Later on, as we had a more and more experience, we tried to find some niche. And actually, we are specialized to be consultant and experts in the fiscalization area. So we're trying to combine technology, legal information, and everything what we have, and try to help the retailers and software solution providers to make life easier when they come into new country or if they want to do something in existing country. So that's I'm. So
okay. Thanks, Rocky. I'm Darko. I'm since 1997 in this industry, let's say, and I started my career at Diebold Nixdorf. I think at that time point it was not Diebel Nixdorf, it was even Siemens Nixdorf, and then the company changed the names and so on. But from the early beginning, I was always same like Roland in the technical environment, in technology environment, and I was in that time point starting with the retail environment as well. I never left this environment, so I'm from the early beginning in the retail and retail technology and retail IT industry. I was responsible for some great and big projects in the world. I was partially developing software as well. I was, of course, in some moments responsible for the software development for the retail part as well. And then together with Roland and together with Borislava, we decided to create a company, own company, and now we are live. So a long journey, lots of experiences that we were able to collect. But we will not talk today about all those experiences. Today, we will talk about the fiscal law in Serbia. It's a very interesting topic, definitely. Even more interesting if you know, and all of us know, that Serbia is fiscal since 2004. It's almost, as we started our company, the government decided to implement the fiscalization as well. So it's that old. But in 2004, the Serbia decided to implement a fiscal printer strategy. At that time point, this was the common and the most used fiscal strategy, and this was fine, definitely. So that till today you are able and forced by the government to use the certain printers, of course. There were some updates of the law in between, for example, to use the GPS devices to transfer the data to the tax authority, but actually the law was quite stable and there were almost no big and no significant changes of it. Last year and now this year, the government in Serbia decided to change the law, but we don't see it as a change because this is so dramatically and so big that we really think that it's totally new law, because totally the concept of the law is totally different. The fiscal printers are not in use anymore, and the concept of the fiscalization is totally different. So of course, I think all of you knows that since or the starting, let's say starting by the 1st of January next year, you are more or less forced to implement this law. But now, happily for all of us, luckily for all of us, we have some kind of grace period till end of April. This is okay. This means we are not that much under the pressure. On the other side, if we talk about the software development and development of the fiscal requirements, for up to 6 months are not that long time. So usually the changes in the software takes longer. And especially in Serbia, we should not forget that there are some elements which makes the fiscalization itself very complex. And we will discuss this today. So this is a shortly just introduction about the environment that we have today. And Rocky, may I ask you please to give us a short overview about the fiscalization concept itself? What
Yes.
we need to expect in the near future?
First of all, I'm happy that I'm talking about from Serbian fiscalization from Serbia. So next time, hopefully, if we have some nice country, that I will talk for that country. But I'm not sure can we manage it, but it will be nice. But I think it's good to talk about Serbia from Serbia. So then I can say I'm relevant to this topic. What we can say for the Serbian fiscal law? First of all, we can group this law into online type of fiscalization because actually the goal of the Serbian fiscalization is to deliver all transactions from the PS application to the government in the real time in each moment. Yeah, this is the more or less the general concept. This means that every POS application is connected to the internet with the government, which will be used to send transaction. So what is specific for Serbia? As all other countries in Serbia, they want to introduce something new, which is not existing in other countries. So also, if you compare to other fiscalization, like in Croatia, Slovenia, the Serbian one is online, but there are specific features which make it unique in Europe. There are in other part of world a similar concept, but in Europe this is first time that we have this concept. So difference, if you compare to these countries, is that you have a component which is installed locally which will be used in case there is no internet. Because in other online fiscalization, you are allowed to work even there is no internet, and then you responsible to send this transaction by yourself. But in Serbia, the concept is different. So you can have an offline scenario, but the transaction which is kept under the internet is established are stored locally, but in a special component which is called LPFR, quite complex name for fiscal model, yeah, and it has to be certified by government, and these transactions are kept until the internet connection is available by this special model and sent to government. We can say this is like a software fiscal model which is keeping secured encrypted data until they delivered. So these are the basic elements from the Serbian fiscalization.
Let me ask regarding the offline and online mode of work, because I think there is a, let's say, a big challenge hidden in that, because according to the government, actually you are not allowed to be offline. Am I right? Because I'm not sure that I understood that right. This is a recent change since 2 or 3 days, right?
The question is what it means offline. Yeah? So you not allowed to be offline for this fiscal module, which is responsible to deliver transaction. But this fiscal module, it's called the processor of the fiscal receipt. And this module can be located locally or on the government side. So if you use this processor, which is located in the government infrastructure, then you actually not allowed to sell without internet at all. So, and this kind of concept, it's used for the online sales and some kind of sales, I will say some specific retail where you don't have a sales in the large quantity like in supermarket. So, for example, car seller, where you are able to deliver the receipt during the day or even later. So for the normal sales, retail sales, you must have this local component, which is called local processor of the fiscal receipt. And actually, you need to have a connection to this processor, but the processor not need to be connected all time to the government. So this is the perspective. So you technically you allow to work offline, but from internet point of view, if you have this local processor, but you always need to be connected to the processor, even if you're an offline scenario. So if you don't have internet and your local processor is somewhere other in the store and you don't have a network connection, you're not allowed to work at all. So this is the specific, and this is, I think, the point where the Serbian fiscal law is quite different if you compare to other laws which we have already experienced in the region. Yeah.
This means the retailer has always, absolutely always, to have the software component or hardware component, which is working like a processor of the transactions in the store. It doesn't matter if it has connection to internet or not, because maybe the internet will be cutted, and what then? So this means you have to have, for any case, for all cases, let's say, a local processor of the transactions, right?
For all, if you want to issue receipt, if you want to close the store, then you don't need to have it.
Right. So this is quite complex, I think, because usually this is a piece of software which government is more or less controlling, but controlling probably through the certification. So you cannot just like that take it. You will need to certificate that. So this means the providers of the POS application will have a challenge, let's say, to implement the piece of the software which is running locally in the store and doing the processing of the transactions, and then to have it certificated, right? Am I right?
Yes, and this complexity more is located in this local processor of fiscal receipt than to the POS application from this storage and communication. But on the other side, on the POS application side, there is also some complexity which makes less convenient for work. We will talk later on about challenges. Yeah. But there are some challenges on the both sides.
Give me, please, your opinion about the modern, let's say, architectures or situation. If we have, for example, some iOS devices, which usually cannot run any kind of additional software, which is not existing as of today. Maybe they will be developed for sure, but usually they're not there. How should they organize that? Should they install in the store piece of hardware and separate device and separate software? Or what would be your advice how to use maybe mobile POS in the store in this environment?
Even government says that they are modern, but they made some complexity with this fiscalization, like
Yeah.
always, because they require to have a special uh, piece of hardware. It's called a smart card, and together with the smart card reader, because if
Okay.
we have a local processor of the fiscal receipt, it has to have this connection to the smart card, because the information about turnover and actual receipt counters are located in the smart card. So this decision to have this piece of hardware, it makes things more complex. So if you want to use a iOS or Android environment, then you need to select environment which has a built-in smart card reader. If you want to have possibility to work completely without any kind of connection, or you want to rely on some external device, like some PC or hub which is installed in the store, where you connect your smart card reader, and on this device you need to install some kind of web services which can be then accessed by the PS application, which is running on the mobile phone or on tablet, and you can use this approach. So I can say, because these hardware specific requirements so make much more complex the mobile PS. It's possible, but not so convenient if you compare to other countries like for example Czech Republic or Slovenia, where you don't need to have any kind of hardware and you can work fully with only software. Yeah.
Like Jimmy is just stating, this means actually that you have to have even piece of hardware in the store.
Mhm.
This means a card reader and of course the
Mhm.
card with your certificate, right? So it's
Mhm.
not really modern.
They say it's modern. It's
More or less,
if
more or
you
less.
compare to the fiscal printer, then it's much more modern. So,
True.
but
Yes.
I will say the real modern solution will not have any kind of hardware. This is the real modern solution. So I can say this is quite modern solution. And yes, the government says in case of the retail, on the retail sales, you need to have at least one local processor, yes, in the store. You can have it more, but at least one. So if you have a e-shop, online sales, or some specific type of sales, then you may use the virtual processor of the receipt, which then
So
not require to have this piece of hardware, but then you need to have a connection to the internet, because actually this processor of the fiscal receipt, it's located in the government infrastructure.
this means the concepts like, for example, Amazon Go will be hard to implement. At least you will need lots of creativity to put the architecture on the proper way in the store and to do the certifications and all this kind of stuff. So it's challenging, definitely. Yes.
But it's more challenging because you need to have this additional component. So it
Right.
cannot be completely in the cloud. And always, if you have some kind of local component, which is must be locally, then it
Mhm.
brings additional non-necessary complexity. For example, even if you have a cloud solution, technically the local processor must be locally. We asked the government, is it possible, for example, to host this local processor in the environment, in the hosted environment, for example, in head office, and they told us it's not possible. So, not logically, physically, also the local processor must be locally. So this is
Mhm.
also uh, uh, something which brings complexity, because if you have this modern cloud application which is running in the cloud, if you use local processor, but in normal retail you need to do, then this local
Mhm.
processor, according to actual information, it must be local.
This is definitely a challenge, and we will come back to that. But if we are
Mhm.
talking about the challenges, I see even two more bigger challenges, let's say it like
Mhm.
that. One is the registration of the stores. Um, I
Mhm.
know it from the other countries in the world. Usually, you have to register not only the stores, but also the
Mhm.
POSs. And
Mhm.
usually, the procedures to register are mostly manual. Even if I
Mhm.
compare it with the countries like Germany, which is a very
Mhm.
modern one and which
Mhm.
recently introduced the fiscal law as well,
Mhm.
the registration of the stores and fiscal devices and POSs and so on
Mhm.
is over there manual as well. So if
Mhm.
I imagine, and I can imagine, that registration of the stores in Serbia will be manual as well,
Mhm.
then the big retailer will have a big challenge, because usually it's not just registration once. You have to do it several times. If you are closing the stores, then you have to deregister somehow and to register maybe new one. You are
Mhm.
always opening the new stores, closing the
Mhm.
old one. So it's a
Yes.
never-ending procedure, right?
Yes, there is a procedure which has to be done manually. So the Serbia is in little advantage to Germany because there are less stores usually. So average retailer
True,
is not so big
true.
like in Germany. So the problem is less, but they are still existing. The procedure
Okay.
of the registration of the store, it's not so complex itself because you need to provide certain information like address, store name, and so etc. When you register the store, there is other activities what you need to perform. For example, you need to apply for the smart card. So there are something which has to be managed. So if you have a lot of stores, then you have a more work. So if you have a one store, then
And
I think it's easy. But if you have a lot store, then you
yes,
need to manage it. Yes.
I remember situations that we had regarding
Mhm.
the registration of the stores and the receipt, or more or less address on the receipt. Usually, if the auditors are coming, they are checking
Mhm.
this information. If the registration at the head office of the fiscal
Mhm.
authority is the same, or data that are
Mhm.
registered are the same like the data on the fiscal receipt. So they will check this, they will compare this. And now I'm
Mhm.
thinking about the situations that we had where
Mhm.
those informations didn't match, and they didn't match because the stores were opened in the malls, in the big malls, and
Mhm.
usually one mall has an
Mhm.
address like one. You understand, so just one
Yeah.
address.
Yeah.
There is no sub address for the store. There are some
Yeah.
store numbers, but you not register them.
Mhm.
So this
But this,
could be an issue as well, especially for the retailer from the fashion area, let's say, which are running stores in the malls. I can imagine that this could be a topic even more complex for them, right?
yes, can be, but here we have also specific in Serbia that information. This we can say also can be a small challenge for the implementation of the possible. It's not a challenge, but it's additional functionality which is specific for Serbia, and it's always challenge because it's cost, yeah, and usually not necessary. Uh, because the header information must be provided by this processor of the fiscal receipt. So the normal
Mhm.
approach is in a post application that you set up this information in the application, and here you need to overtake from the processor of the fiscal receipt, either local or virtual. So you must print data which is coming for the government. So you will not print your information what you have. So you will take from the processor, and you will use this address. So that's why
Uh-huh.
you can make a mistake, but you can make a mistake on the government portal if you fill in the wrong information. But once if you have information correct, you cannot make mistake because you forced to print exact data what you get from the government at every fiscalization.
But this is very interesting, because if I
Yeah.
think now a little bit further, then I see that there will be necessary to have a kind of communication between the local processor and the fiscal authority. So it's not
Mhm.
just sending the data and getting the okay if the data are sent like they should. But in this case, you will have to ask, please give me the address. Then you will get the address, and then you will give it to the POS application, and the POS
Mhm.
application will print it. Am I
Yes.
right? Because then it's
Yes, but
getting
it's
even
coming.
more
It's
complex.
coming. It's coming together with the fiscalization. So when you send the data for fiscalization, as a response, you will get information like a store address and store
Uh-huh.
information, and you will get also one next important thing. It's a VAT specification. So it's act as a fiscal printer. So this processor of the fiscal receipt will calculate the VAT, and this feature, it also brings complexity because the calculation from the POS can be different if you compare to the process of the local receipt. And you need to deal with this difference because usually the VAT will be submitted based on information which is coming for the post application and calculation for the post application. And in this scenario, you forced and you must print information, VAT specification, according to the rates and amounts which is calculated by processor of the fiscal receipt.
But tell me, please, is it allowed just to use the local processor? Because why I'm asking, because if we have to
Mhm,
use maybe the governmental system for
mhm,
the cases that if we are online, and then we are using maybe our own, which is locally for the offline cases, this means we have a two, let's say, locations where the
mhm,
calculations are done,
mhm.
VATs and datas and so on. This could cause the problem, I think. So, but if I could use just the local one, and the local one synchronize with the head office, with the fiscal authority
Mhm,
server, it would be
mhm.
easier for the POS application. Is this kind of concept allowed? Is
So
it
yes,
okay
it's
to
allowed
use
to mix
just the
concept.
local one?
You can have a just local. You can have a mixed. For example, you can use virtual when you have internet, and when you don't have, you use a local one. And in special scenarios, you can use only the virtual one at the government. I say for the special kind of retailer and also for the e-commerce. But
Mhm.
the logic is the same. So always the calculating of the VAT, it's in responsibility of the local processor of fiscality or
Yeah.
processor of
Then
fiscality, either local or virtual. So the
in
logic is
this in
same.
this yes. In this case, I would always recommend to the retailer to use only the local processor, because then they have just one source of the information, one way to calculate. They're using just one algorithm to calculate, and there will be no differences. Otherwise, if you are mixing, it can happen that you have two different algorithms, and then maybe the rounding issue or whatever, and you will have differences.
But technically
Maybe,
can
I don't know.
happen, but it will if you implement correctly, because the calculation algorithm it's provided by government. So actually, if you implement algorithm which is defined by government and you don't have a bug, then you need to have a same calculation because it's exactly stated how the calculation is done, and you should to have a same result. It's calculated by virtual, local, doesn't matter.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Okay, so we touched just partially
Mhm,
the data which are on the receipt. I
mhm,
think there are special transactions which are quite new and just
mhm.
introduced in this fiscal law, and there are some data which are very special for the Serbian law as well. Is this a complex issue, or you don't see it as a that complicated? Let's say.
It's also depend of the retailer. So, for example, actually, it's a new transaction type in terms of Serbia, but in general, it's a new transaction. It's not a new transaction type. This
Mhm,
transaction types existing in other, but it can be more complex. Depend on the retailer. So, for example, some of retailer doesn't have advance payment, and the government force you not to implement all possible transaction types, but some of them, yes. And one of them is advance payment. So you need to implement advance payment even if you not use. So actually, this is also additional requirements for the PS suppliers, which I think no need to force it, but they decided to do, and we can not do nothing. And
mhm.
for example, we had interesting scenarios when we are using the vending machines. So even in vending machine, there is no actually advance payment in vending machine doesn't exist. So and we have open question government how to do it. Official response is that they need to have for certification purpose, but I don't know how to initiate advance payment on the vending machine. So it's a not easy task.
You just mentioned that we asked the government something and that we are expecting
Mhm.
answer. As I got from the last couple of months and even couple of
Mhm.
weeks, the Serbian government is answering really fast. At
Yes,
least
but
according to my experience, right?
you know this triangle: fast, quality, and cheap. So you cannot have everything. And we can say same for the government. I can they do fast. I really want today, but I had experienced several times that they make a wrong. So not because they want to
Ah,
make a wrong, because I think have a new team which is set up maybe a few weeks ago, and I found, for example, if you get the answer, uh, you will get a quite quick. But I usually try to check in documentation, and I several times had experience that it was not consistent, and then I replied back. So please, then update a document, or you answered wrong and they say, sorry, we make a mistake. So actually they are quick, but I think they're not still enough mature in this business. So this will also bring maybe a little bit complexity, so we can expect that someone you will have a different answers. Also, I think some of open questions they still don't internally agreed how to answer. So there is some, I even say, more important business process which are still not clear, like a voucher sales, gift card sales, or for example, uh, how to issue final receipt after advance payment. So they don't have still some decision how they will proceed with that. So I think this is also make some complexity because we need to implement something, and even they in this moment doesn't know. And they officially say that they will need a few weeks to discuss and make a final decision how to proceed with this kind of business processes.
Just please give me your view and your opinion. You were involved in several countries or in all countries that we are doing, and you know
Mhm.
exactly how those governments are
Mhm.
working, and let's say what's the time frame and how big was the
Mhm.
pressure. If you compare it with the other countries, are we
Mhm.
in Serbia more under the pressure, or do we have more time, let's say, to implement? Because I think it's running quite good from the
Mhm.
there are lots of open points, there are lots
Yes.
of things that are not clarified, but in other
Mhm.
countries the situations were even much worse, right?
Yes. I can say it's better than other, but there was in better and worst case. So I remember the worst scenario was in Croatia, but interestingly, it was successful because they published technical documentation in middle of October, and the goal I was 1st of January, and that was
I
no grace
remember,
period.
yes.
And it
Yeah.
was really tough at that time, and it was shock for many retailers because they told us uh, they just open port in big retailer like a Metro Cash and Carry. They need to spend 1 2 months to make a decision, and this was the first
Yeah.
online fiscalization in Croatia. This was really tough. I think in Serbia it's much better because now we have this grace period. Good thing that they are answer quite quick. Bad thing is still not fixed, but I think in next months it will be fixed. So I can say it's better than average. So, but I
That's
think in
good,
all
good to hear
countries
that.
you have different challenges. For example, I was surprised also for Germany because the Germany it's you sitting in the Germany, so it's a quite good
Yes,
developed country, and they make fiscal law quite complex. They made it from two different departments, one for communication, one for data, so they make a lot of confusion. and
yes,
and also I was surprised that Germany, which it's made in Germany, should be a good stamp, but in case of
yes.
fiscalization was not so good stamp.
Yeah, I can add even some ideas or some opinion that I have. I was really negatively surprised because I was expecting that the fiscalization will run like projects from Siemens, where everything is defined just on
Yes.
time and like Germans are doing that. But the fiscalization was a big confusion from my point of view, and it's still so. There are still some points which are still not solved and not definite. Like for example, the manual registration of the stores. And
Mhm.
now you can imagine the retailer which has several thousands of the stores,
Mhm.
how to register all of them manually. So it's a big
Mhm.
issue,
Yeah,
and not just to register. It's an ongoing process, right?
it's almost run like a Tegel airport in Berlin. Yeah.
In Berlin. That's true.
Yeah,
That's true. Almost finished. Always almost
almost finished.
finished.
Yeah. Yes.
So, but
So
let's go to the
coming back
next.
to Serbia,
Sorry.
yes.
Yes. So let's go to the next complex issue, which can make this fiscalization very complex and very problematical. And this is certification. As we
Mhm.
have experience from other countries, like, for example, Romania, Portugal,
Mhm.
France, and so on, certification is something which is very common. But if
Mhm.
you do it wrong, let's say, it can become very complex issue, very costly issue for the retailer and the post
Mhm.
software provider, and sometimes even never ending story. I remember the stories that where I was responsible for the certification of Carrefour in Turkey, and this was the biggest fail in my life. I was never able to pass the certification. So I hope this will
Mhm.
not happen in Serbia. Do you have
Mhm.
more details about the certification?
Yes,
What has to
we
be certificated actually?
so we have more information, but we don't have a real experience. So we will need the commitment of this experience and information in real life, based on actual information, which we are quite good updated because we are regularly visit different kind of workshops and some presentation of the fiscalization in Serbia. Based on this information, we not expect so complex fiscalization like in Hungary and Romania, but there are still something to do. First of all, I want to say that we have a two kind of certification. One certification is related to earlier mentioned local processor of the fiscal receipt, and this certification it's more complex, and it will take more time, and it will be not so easy. Like for example post application. So other side post application will we have a so-called lighter fiscalization, where you still have to fulfill some requirements. You still need to apply this certification, but you will be able to manage it by online portal. So you will not need to bring your solution to the government except if they require. So in the general, in the most common scenarios, you will able to do it by using the internet portal. You will need to, of course, have a local company, which is very popular in all fiscal countries. So you will not be able to apply as a foreign company. You will need to know local language. So you will need to know something and understand, but I think it will be much more easier if you compare to Hungarian and Romanian one. But still, it's certification, yeah.
But I think this topic that you cannot even start the fiscal
Mhm.
certification if you don't have a local company and you are the foreign software provider, this could be a big issue. So we know this in other countries, like for example in Portugal. In Portugal, you can't start the certification also if you don't have the company over there. So this
Mhm.
means you need a local entity with a
Yes.
tax number and everything. So
Mhm.
it will be the same in Serbia, right?
Yes, it will be same actually.
Yeah. So this is on one side big issue, of course. On the other side,
Mhm.
we will be able to help, of course, because we
Yes.
developed separate entity which will do
Mhm.
only that. So if the
Mhm.
international retailer and post software provider needs help with that, we will be able to provide this kind of service definitely as well. So, what about if we are talking about the government? What about financial help? I read some weeks ago
Mhm.
that there are some money that they will
Mhm.
give to the retailers to be
Mhm.
able to introduce this law. Do you know something
Mhm.
more about it? I heard some values, 100 or something like that. You know something more
Yes.
about that?
Yeah, yeah. There is information that every retailer will get, I think, 100 euro or two. So I'm not know exactly in this moment, but one or 200 per POS and per store. So if you have three stores with two POSs, you will then, for example, if it's 100, you will get a three and three, six, 800 euros. So it's okay, this is some money, but if we're talking about implementing international software, so it will not cover all expenses, but
But
it will
it's not
helpful.
bad.
Yes,
Yeah,
but it will be helpful for the local small retailer and local
right.
companies, yeah.
I like this approach because in other
Mhm.
countries we didn't see that kind
Yes.
of help. So this is quite okay. I like it.
In some countries, it was some they give some possibility to reduce reduce taxes on the end of the year. So, for
Mhm.
example, in Austria was similar situation, but yes, so not in all countries. In Croatia, I don't remember. It was some
Neither do
kind
I.
of
Yeah.
support from the government. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Roland, let's summarize, let's say, the
Mhm.
biggest challenges, let's say, that we see in the upcoming changes or
Mhm.
upcoming new fiscal law in Serbia. Give us
Mhm.
some words about the challenges.
Yes, the biggest challenge is that you need to implement and integrate with this local or virtual processor, you need to may introduce new type of the fiscal receipt, which will don't exist. There is a special procedure which is also related to this local processor fiscal receipt about manual export and import transaction information for the manual communication. There is also certification procedure. This also requires certain activities. Then this migration phase that you need to replace your existing equipment to put a new one. You may need to exchange the printers, fiscal printers with the new POS printers. You will have some new elements on the receipt, and this feature that you need to print information which is coming for the local processor. I think this will be the biggest challenge because it's required additional care in integration to ensure that your tax rates are same like calculated in the local processor, and you synchronize also information like a header data and VAT rates. Yeah.
There are lots of challenges,
Yes.
and we didn't talk about the hardware challenges, because even if you don't, you just mentioned it, even if you don't need to use the fiscal hardware anymore, or you have to use the smart card reader, okay, this is like a piece of fiscal hardware, you have to consider that you have to do something with existing fiscal printer. So somebody has to go into the store to pick up the printer and to install the new standard receipt printer, I suppose, because people
Yes.
or retailer will not keep the fiscal printer to print the non-fiscal receipts on it. So it doesn't make sense.
Not. Technically, you can, but you will need to print the QR code. So it's not so easy. So I will say
Right.
the most easiest approach will be to change.
Yeah, so this is definitely a challenge, especially if you are a big retailer, if you have several hundred of locations, then it's a big issue to collect and to exchange the hardware pieces as well.
It's a good thing that you don't need to exchange in one day, but you must exchange complete store. So you cannot exchange the partial store. So if you have 10 tills, for example, you must exchange all 10 tills
at once.
And certain things are not, for example, defined yet. One interesting scenario which is not covered is that, for example, if you go to pilot and you change to online fiscalization one store, actually by current information, the fiscal printers will be automatically defiscalized when you register the new store at the government. And then it's open some question like if you not go immediately. So because it's not still clear. So what will happen if you register new store? What doesn't mean? So when you need to go in the pilot, and second big question is if the pilot will not successful. So nobody thinks about it. What will happen if you have some disaster and you need to make a rollback? I think they most probably don't think about this special case because they don't have so much experience in the real life in retail. So they have virtual experience, yeah. But that's the life in other countries. So it's usual. I think it's not. I experienced these scenarios in many other countries, so it's not unique.
Maybe if we summarize these latest challenges that you are just talking about, we can recommend retailers to have a good project manager because there are so many those things that have to be synchronized with each other, and you need a dedicated person doing just that in the large environment. If you have a smaller environment, it will be, of course, easier. Maybe I can add on the top, and we are coming closely to the end. So let me add on the top that the biggest challenge nowadays in this moment is to get all the informations which are just moving around. So there are lots of news coming from the government, even maybe daily or at least weekly. There are lots of new documents just published every week. So I think it's very important for everyone to stay informed. For this kind of help, let's say, to stay informed, I want just to tell you that we have a special online portal called Fiscal Portal, where you can check the news daily. So even if you are not subscriber, even if you are not paying for the subscription, of course, you will see what is the new, and this can trigger you to find the information by yourself. So I can recommend to use the fiscal portal. To use it even easier, we have RSS feed, so you can integrate it easily in any kind of RSS reader, so you will be informed on time about all the changes. But if you want to subscribe and to get more details, of course, you are warm welcome to do that. If you need, as a retailer or post software provider, more help, and the persons like Roland, for example, and our other technical consultancies, to help you with everything, to explain you all the details, and to guide you through all those implementation topics, please contact us. We have a dedicated workshops just for that, and we will be very glad to help you. So I hope you enjoyed this historical event, because it's the first one. I will remember it for sure for all the times. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got lots of interesting and important information. And let me invite you for the next session, next Tuesday, same time, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And the topic will be published, of course, on our LinkedIn page. So please go there, follow us, and you will be informed on time. Thank you very much. And Roland, thank you very much for a very interesting discussion. And I'm happy to do it next time again with you. Thank you, everyone. See you next time.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.